Oh, it's humid here in London, but hey everyone, welcome back to Growth Vertical. Today I want to talk about why leads alone won't matter. A bit controversial, but it's definitely an important topic. Recently, I've been actually bombarded with a few questions around, hey, how do we actually assess lead quality and that sort of thing, and what do we do with the leads next, right? And for example, whenever I set up a strategy for a client or anything like that, we always talk about, hey, well, what do we need to do in terms of understanding whether the leads coming in are actually valuable or not? And second, what are we doing with the leads after, right? And I kind of wanted to talk about the three main areas that you should be focusing on when carrying out lead generation, right? So first, you need to ask yourself, where did these come from? So what channels did they come from? So that you can understand the intent behind each of the channels, right? So to go into a bit more detail, with understanding where they came from, comparing a channel like PPC or SEO, where the intent is higher, right? Where people are actually actively searching for certain keywords, and then you're showing an ad and driving that traffic to your landing page and then converting. The intent behind their decision on actually looking for you is totally different, right? Whereas if you're generating a lead from LinkedIn, let's say, right, you're talking about people who aren't in the mindset of particularly looking for your solution. In that case, you may be using a white paper, right? So some form of lead magnet. And this is where I kind of want to talk about this specific area of the funnel, right? Like, so how do I pulled this straight from a client presentation I've given in the past, but more so on the strategy, you think about, hey, well, what channel are they coming from? The reason why is because you want to assess the quality, right? And that will allow you to understand whether the lead quality from one channel is better than the other, and where you should actually go ahead and adjust your ad budgets or your channel your marketing budgets for different channels in accordance to the quality, right? So based off of that, the second one you should be assessing is the quality of the leads. Do they match your buyer persona? Because on SEO, on PPC, you may come across people that from different countries or different markets, etc., who will type in a search and maybe they've made a mistake, right, in terms of the keyword of what they're looking for, and they've come through and they've converted. Now, if you are in the mindset of, hey, we generated a lead, but that's it, then that's not going to yield many results for the business, right? And that's what you shouldn't be focusing on. You shouldn't be focusing on that at all. You should be focusing on conversions, and you should be focusing on the business generated from these particular channels. So we're looking at the cost per acquisition, right? So the cost to acquire one of those customers, right? And what you want to do is assess the quality behind each of those channels and really dig deep behind, hey, which channels match up to our persona and which ones fit into the buyer journey and at what stage. And then the last section, which a lot of people tend to miss out on when they're talking about leads, right, is they don't have a nurture journey in mind, right? So they don't have email marketing in mind. They don't have paid social. They don't have retargeting in mind. Nothing like that, right? Which is kind of confusing to me, but then again, it's quite common. So let's say, for example, you've generated a list of 100 leads. What do you do with them next? That's a very important question that you should have thought about before generating the leads. And that's why leads alone won't matter, right? So you want to have email lead nurtures in place. You want to have a follow-up sequence or some follow-up process, even via your sales team, right? So your SDR team. You want to be able to reach out to the lead and actually go ahead and see what is it that they're after, and almost validate, hey, well, what do you need in terms of the content that you've downloaded? Do you need support? Do you need to understand anything in the space? Do you have any questions? All these things would actually impact the likelihood of them converting into business. And that's why it's important for people to understand why leads alone won't matter, right? The quality matters too. So keep those three things in mind, right? Where they came from, the quality of the lead. So does it match up to your persona or any of the signals that you've marked as a signal for someone being in the buyer's journey of your product? And also, Number three, like nurturing them, right? So what are you going to do after, right? Do you have follow-up processes? Do you have a sales team ready and armed with the right training, with the right outreach, with the right follow-up processes and procedures in order to support the leads in actually becoming a customer in the future? Because leads alone don't have to convert right there and then, right? Depending on your sales cycle, of course, for example, B2B companies and specifically software companies, you want to be nurturing them or staying top of mind over a long time. And that's why it's important to have paid social retargeting and also email marketing in place, right? And having sales and SDRs to back that up as well. So if you're going after leads, what problem can that cause? Well, if you go after leads, right, you're actually not going to be able to focus on the actual lead quality itself, right, like we were talking about, right? So it will blind you to the creative and strategic nature of the entire funnel itself, right, and how you should be actually leveraging multiple platforms in an integrated manner, right, so that you can provide the best experience for that prospect and that lead over time, right? I hope that makes sense. So essentially what we're saying is that if you're using LinkedIn, for example, to prospect, right? Because we all know that for B2B audiences specifically, you may be looking to use LinkedIn to prospect your ideal customer, because you've got a persona and you're able to dial in the targeting on their great, B2B targeting platform. And what you want to do is, once you've generated the lead with a value-driven piece of content, you may want to migrate, some budget over to retargeting platforms, let's say using Facebook or maybe using the Google Display Network to retarget and stay top of mind with these customers, simply because it's cheaper, and second, because you can get a greater reach, and also because you can stay top of mind on multiple platforms, right? Rather than having something where someone should expect maybe they just generated a guide and that's it, right? And they don't receive anything in the future. They don't hear from you again. They've probably forgotten about you in a few days, right? So you kind of don't want to play the aspect of, let me generate leads, let me just hand off and that's it, right? That's just not the way to do things. Also, you want to be, the reason why I say that you kind of want to go after leads, but also consider the nature of the platforms that they came from, is so that you can actually use different messaging on different platforms. So let's say that on LinkedIn, maybe the content's a bit more serious, a bit more professional. So you want to offer content that's a bit more professional, maybe like an industry report or something. And maybe we're talking about cost savings on that sort of platform. Versus if you're on Facebook and you're part of, let's say your software or allows certain businesses to decrease their carbon footprint, you kind of want to talk about climate change on Facebook, because it's more of a bigger topic on Facebook itself, right? And you're able to actually sort of push, it's more of a friendly topic to talk about on that platform itself, right? When someone's not in the business mind, right? They're not in the mindset of scrolling through LinkedIn where it's purely professional. Maybe they go in there to do some work, or maybe they're going there to update their profile, or looking at job prospects or anything like that. And then also, capturing their attention with different offers also falls in line with that. So you want to actually go ahead and capture their attention with different offers on different platforms, or at least serve a particular offer to that particular audience, and that will link to the third reason as well. But targeting these particular audiences with a particular offer because it resonates with that particular audience. And this would have been dialed in once you've actually already assessed, hey, well, I've generated a list of these leads, but we can split these leads into these buckets and we can provide them with these particular offers. And what that will allow you to do is actually increase the chances of those audiences understanding your product, understanding your business, learning about why they converted in the first place and what you have to offer. And finally, increase the likelihood of them converting, like in terms of what you've got to offer for your business, right? At the end of the day. And so that brings me to my final point as to what you should always be wary of, is speaking to these different audiences with a personalized tone. So there's nothing wrong with generating leads for the business, but then actually providing action points on how they could be split by particular, let's say, by particular interests, or let's say they came from particular channels, or They have particular traits behind them, like, for example, what type of business they work for, what type of industry are they in, and you can match these particular characteristics up, split them off, and segment these audiences, so you can increase the likelihood of how these leads will convert in the future once you've set up an email sequence, for example, to deliver that personalized content. Now, I know that this is probably it's a little bit more complicated than it may seem, but actually, when you start to think about the initial work you've done with creating the buyer personas, understanding the buyer's journey, and then using the first set of platforms you've chosen to actually go ahead and target these leads, you'll notice that you'll spot these particular patterns when looking at the data as to where particular leads are converting, where particular prospects are converting into a lead, and where particular leads are converting into an actual customer, right? And that's why, in the end, leads alone won't matter unless you do something with them and unless you've actually gone ahead and targeted them specifically, right? You don't want to be generating leads for a dentist when you're trying to generate leads for a B2B software business, right? So let's say an accountancy software or anything like that, right? They're two different audiences, and to be honest, the client won't be great, like they won't be happy, and second, you probably won't be happy with the efforts, right, on where you've actually spent your budget and what you're getting in return. So I hope this is useful for you. If you guys like the content, then please do smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. See you soon.